Revealed, how a father's unexpected call transformed my frozen trust fund after losing my daughter. Zachary sat in his classroom, the autumn light pouring through the windows like a soft reminder of life continuing outside. It was supposed to be a typical Tuesday, filled with discussions about pivotal moments in history, a favorite lesson plan of his. Yet, his thoughts spiraled inwards, chasing shadows and haunting echoes of laughter that filled the empty spaces at home. The click of a cell phone vibrating on his desk shattered his reverie, and his breath caught in his throat when he saw Jack's name illuminate the screen. Could he handle this? The man who had carved a chasm in their lives once again sought to bridge it. Rage and longing fought for dominance in his heart. Why now? He whispered, gripping the desk, memories of Lily flooding through him like a tidal wave. He picked up the call, his pulse quickening with every strained word spilling from Jack's lips. "Zach, we need to talk." Those words unleashed a torrent of confusion in Zach's mind. Why would Jack reach out now, after years of silence? Just last week, he had come to grips with the idea that pain was a weight he would carry alone. Or was it a cruel twist? He'd been managing so much the trembling grief of losing his daughter, wrestling daily with the idea of relinquishing a future without her. And now, more darkness in the form of his estranged father sought to weave itself into an already tangled narrative. Jack's voice cracked, each tremor reflecting the years lost, family fractures and unhealed wounds. "Your trust fund, it's tied to a property we neglected, but if we could bring it back to life." Zach squeezed his eyes shut, a mix of resentment and sorrow coursing through him. The house. The cursed relic of a childhood stained by expectations he never wanted, and yet now it held a promise, the only path to reclaim something significant for Lily, a legacy suffocated in dust and memories. An idea lingered, enticing yet terrifying. What if he turned that dilapidated studio into something beautiful? The thought curled into a faint glimmer of hope. But his heart thudded against his ribs, filled with suspicion. Was this truly a gesture of reconciliation? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Zach hung up the phone, the weight of the call solidifying from thought to palpable anguish. Returning to the house meant confronting his past, the painful specters of neglect and hurt. Each breath felt constricted, as if the walls of his classroom pressed inward, suffocating him. Could he trust Jack again after being abandoned in his most vulnerable moments? Yet the circumstances were different now. He had students who looked to him for guidance, eager minds hungry for knowledge, driven by dreams outside of Wayfield. His struggle between keeping the past buried and awakening a future for Lily felt like standing atop a precipice. As he envisioned those untouched canvases, young voices drifted into his mind, those eager students who believed in revitalization, who reminded him of the vibrant spirit of his daughter. It clawed at him. Could he risk resurrecting his relationship with Jack amidst the chaos of grief that clung to him like a shroud? The conglomeration of guilt and hope spiraled fiercely, leaving a desperate pit in his stomach. If he stepped forward, he could revive Lily's vision, but who would he be forging paths with? Could one more betrayal break the fragile strings of his shattered heart? The hours slipped away unnoticed, the teacher in him fading while the sun wrestled deeply with fear. Zach stood alone, a silent figure caught in the tempest, every decision stacked against him like an insurmountable wave, threatening to drag him into an uncertainty that loomed larger than the life he had danced around for far too long. There was no turning back, and yet, the choice waited cold and looming, with every moment urging a resolution he wasn't ready to confront. Zach sat at his desk, the gentle hum of the fluorescent lights above pulling him from the depths of contemplation. Each tick of the clock seemed to echo the echo of his father's call, his ringing in his ears like a trap. The students, unaware of the storm brewing within him, chattered and laughed softly, their voices a comforting distraction, a reminder of innocence he so desperately needed now. Just outside the window, leaves danced in the breeze, vibrant and full of life, an ironic juxtaposition to the melancholy that clung to him that he couldn't shake the thought of the studio. Years of neglect had turned it into a nearly forgotten space, where creative dreams had faded amid the rubble. It felt cursed, yet, for the first time in ages, it also felt like a sliver of hope. Could he transform that place into a sanctuary for himself, a tribute to Lily? Crafting a vision was easy, confronting the past was where the real struggle lay. This property wasn't just a building, it encapsulated fragmented memories that Zach had tried to forget. Zach glanced at a framed photograph on his desk, one of Lily painting, her face aglow with passion and joy. A lump rose in his throat as he fought back tears. If only he could summon the same vibrancy to reignite the broken legacy that Jack was offering. His fingers traced the glass surface, pondering the paths that lay ahead. This could become a space where creativity flourished, where students could thrive amidst art and laughter, a home for inspiration, a healing ground for their wounds. And yet, was he ready to immerse himself in the chaos that was his father? The bell rang, pulling him back to reality as students shuffled toward the door, eager to exit into the crisp autumn air. As they left, Zach caught Matt's eye, one of his brightest students who often stayed behind to discuss art. "Mr. Hayes," Matt said with youthful enthusiasm, "what is going to happen with the art show?" "I heard it's going to be incredible." Zach hesitated, grappling with the weight of his choices. "We've got some great projects in the works, Matt. You're going to shine in it." His voice felt remarkably steady, surprising him. Those words hung in the air as his mind raced. Could he shine in this unexpected chapter of his life as well? The irony wasn't lost on him. Encouraging his students demanded that he take risks of his own. Hours passed, sweat pooling at the nape of his neck as Zach transformed into a preparer of lessons and a nurturer of aspirations. Yet he felt intimately aware of a looming decision. The clock signaled the end of the day, the classroom emptying of chatter and laughter, leaving him again in solitude. The remnants of the day echoed, creativity mingling with despair within the confines of this room, symbolic of his battle with fear that he found himself pacing, mentally calculating the next steps. A mere visit to the studio. Just one step towards a potential reclamation of his old life and Lily's legacy. But could he really venture into the depths of tangled memories and incite confrontation, head-on with Jack? Each breath he took felt contingent upon that choice. Every ounce of momentum emanated from the duality of his past and future. Finally, he reached for the phone, his hand trembling slightly. There was an urgency that accompanied it, stemming from a desperate need to realize a future worthy of both his daughter and himself. The dim light in the room felt oppressive against the thoughts clamoring for release. Dialing Jack's number, he felt his heartbeat spike, and as the tone echoed in his ear, he realized that transparency may be the only way forward. A connection was made, and just as Jack's voice came through, a sudden crack of uncertainty seized him. The moment of truth was at hand, the weight of his decision would no longer hover on the periphery. "Jack," Zach began, his voice reflecting determination, but uncertainty lay just beneath the surface. A chill raced down his spine as he contemplated the acceptance of what lay ahead. "I'm willing to meet you at the studio." As the words left his lips, a wave of realization dawned. He was stepping out of the shadows and towards the light. Yet, as he hung up the phone, a fresh wave of anxiety washed over him. What awaited him in that space held so much potential for healing, yet could likewise threaten everything he had sought to rebuild. He took a deep breath, steeling himself against the unknown that lay ahead. This was it. He was about to confront not only the ghosts of his past but the possibility of something greater than himself. With that realization, he stepped away from the desk and opened the classroom door, a renewed sense of resolve propelling him forward. The journey toward revitalization had begun, but he understood there would likely be storms ahead, ones that could test every crevice of his newfound determination. Zach stepped outside, an exhilarating chill in the air. This time, he embraced it. Would he be fortified by connections made, or merely overwhelmed by mistakes of the past? That remained to be seen. A new chapter awaited, and with it, the labyrinth of discovery beckoned, an invitation he could no longer ignore. The philosophical weight of what he might unearth lingered like fog, inspiring anticipation mixed with a healthy dose of fear as he made his way toward the studio, ready to unveil what lay beneath the layers of neglect and hurt. The studio loomed into view as Zach approached, its faded facade reminiscent of a once vibrant heartbeat now dulled to a whisper. With each step, his apprehension collided with fragments of hope, creating an internal tug-of-war that threatened to ground him. The weight of Lily's absence hung heavily in the air, leaving a bittersweet residue that haunted the threshold. He hesitated for a moment, fingers hovering above the door where the paint chipped and cracked in defiance. As he finally pushed through, the scent of dust mingled with paint, a potent reminder of both neglect and potential. Dim light danced like shadows across the room, illuminating patches of canvases and scattered brushes. He inhaled deeply, attempting to draw in the essence of creativity that once thrived here and was now buried beneath years of abandonment. This place, his sanctuary for dreams, currently lay in shambles, yet something within him stirred with the promise of resurrection. His heart raced as he swept his gaze across the remnants of artistic ambition. Old canvases leaned against walls like weary soldiers returning from battle. There was a story within each faded stroke, a memory, a loss, a promise unfulfilled. Zach stepped further inside, purpose taking shape among the debris, pushing him beyond the confines of nostalgia and into the realm of action. He felt the weight of the call he had made just hours earlier. Jack's voice still echoed in his mind, insistent and pressing. It wasn't just an invitation, it was a challenge laced with the sharp edges of regret and expectation. The thought of confronting his father felt like standing at the base of a mountain he had long avoided. Would the confrontation be a reconciliation of their fractured relationship, or merely a painful reminder of the past he desperately wanted to escape? Think of them, Zach, he whispered to himself, envisioning the students whose lives he had been nurturing, the aspirations in their eyes reflecting back the flicker of creativity he had once known. It was time to transform not only the studio, but his own role within the tapestry of their lives. The weight of the future pressed down once more. As he surveyed the room, a rush of determination filled him, paving the way for clarity amidst the haze. He tightened his jaw, recognizing the fire igniting within him, not just a desire to succeed, but an obligation to honor Lily's legacy and the passions of those who looked to him for inspiration. A sudden sound pierced the silence, reverberating through the empty space, a rustling at the entrance. Turning quickly, Zach came face to face with Jack, whose expression was a strange mixture of resolve and uncertainty. The lines etched on his father's face told their own story, one of years spent struggling against the currents of life, much like Zach himself. Zach, Jack started, a hesitant edge to his voice. I didn't expect you to really come. Neither did I, Zach replied, surprising himself with the steadiness of his tone. The tension in the room was palpable as both men stood anchored in their respective doubts. Each second felt like an eternity, filled with the unsaid words that swirled between them, dressed in the ghosts of their collective past. This was the moment, a confrontation of honesty that had been written long before they summoned the courage to face it. Zach's chest tightened as he grappled with emotions coalescing into clarity. Could he find in Jack not just a father estranged by circumstance, but a partner in reviving the dreams they both cherished? Taking a deep breath, Zach met his father's eyes head-on. The familiar warmth twisted with resentment, but alongside it was an urgency rooted in shared history. If we're going to move forward, we need to confront what's been left unsaid. Jack nodded, a flicker of acknowledgement dancing in his gaze. They stood at the precipice of change, a tipping point where silence threatened to suffocate the chance for renewal. What if it's not just the studio that needs rebuilding? Jack ventured, each word laden with a tentative hope. As the possibilities unveiled themselves like the canvases surrounding them, Zach felt emboldened yet terrified. There was so much left to explore, to uncover within the studio, and within themselves. The weight of their past would be both a burden and a catalyst for the bridge they needed to rebuild. Let us start by uncovering the layers, Zach murmured, his pulse quickening with both trepidation and possibility. What lay ahead was uncertain, but Zach understood that to reclaim their narrative, they would have to embrace both the light and the shadow that had shaped their lives. The journey to discovery had just begun, and already the air crackled with the electricity of untold stories waiting to be freed. In that moment, a tentative alliance emerged, but the unyielding question remained: could they navigate the tumultuous waters of their relationship, or would old wounds resurface, threatening the fragile steps they had taken toward renewal? The threads of awkward silence wove around Zach and Jack, tightening their grip as each man stood weighing the weight of unspoken words. The air intermingled with the scent of oil paint and drying varnish, steeping them both in memories of Lily and dreams suspended in time. What once felt mundane now appeared monumental, a crucial step they had both avoided for far too long. Zach's heart raced in a paradox of determination and dread. "You know," he said, breaking the silence, "it's not just about this place, Dad. It's about what we let slip away." His voice trembled slightly, but it grounded him, forcing the reality of their shared experiences into the foreground. Jack's brow furrowed, a flicker of vulnerability passing through his eyes. "I never meant to ruin anything, Zach. I thought I was protecting you from my failures." That confession hung suspended in the air. Zach could see pain etched in the lines of Jack's face, mirrored by his own internal struggle. They were both victims of circumstance, navigating the choppy waters of loss and regret. "But that's just it, isn't it? In trying to protect me, you pushed me away. We both wanted to protect what mattered, but instead, we let it fester." Suddenly aware of the sheer gravity of the conversation, Zach reached for a nearby canvas, holding it tightly as if it were a lifeline. Stripped of its colors, the blank surface represented their lives clouded by unexpressed truths. What if we could start to paint again? Not just here, but as father and son? Jack's eyes softened, yet skepticism lingered. "You think it's that easy? Just say the words and everything changes?" "Maybe it is easy," Zach countered, adrenaline climbing as he felt the edge of discovery push him forward. "But it can also be complicated. It starts with acknowledging the truth, Dad, the good, the bad, and the messy. We've both been hiding from it." His father shifted his weight, contemplating Zach's proposition. "All right, so how do we begin? With apologies, the past, or our future?" "Let us start with what's right in front of us," Zach said, gesturing toward the studio. "What if we could create something new together? Imagine teaching those kids, sharing your art, your stories, maybe even mine. We could rebuild this place, make it something that honors what we lost but also embraces what can be born anew." A flicker of hope seemed to spark in Jack's eyes, but it was clear he wrestled with doubt. "I'm afraid, Zach. Afraid that I'll disappoint you again." "Then let us confront it together." Zach steadied himself, trying to infuse confidence into the moment. "We can't change the past, but we can redefine our future. The question is, are you willing to work for it?" Stepping further into the shadows of the studio, Jack paused, his gaze settling on the canvases stacked against the walls, remnants of a vibrant past. "I can try," he said finally, vulnerability lilted in his words. "But I won't lie, I'm not sure I remember how to paint the right colors anymore." Zach felt a flicker of something determination, but also a sense of urgency that propelled him forward. "Then let us rediscover the colors together. Let us create something raw and real, something that reveals not just the beauty, but the struggle too." As his father took a step closer, Zach realized that this could be the turning point, the bridge they desperately needed to cross. There was a possibility that lay hidden beneath the layers of struggle and uncertainty. "Tonight, we'll share our stories," Zach suggested, glancing around at the scattered materials of their creative sanctuary. "We might just find that the act of creating doesn't start with the brush, but with the connection between us." Jack nodded slowly, contemplation settling on his shoulders. With new resolve, they faced the future on the cusp of transformation. Yet, as they stood together, poised on the edge of this venture, Zach couldn't shake the feeling that shadows from their past still loomed, threatening to upend their tentative progress. What if the very thing they were trying to rebuild was the same thing that would unearth deeper wounds? There was still so much more to uncover, and as the evening light spilled through the dust-streaked windows, a bittersweet thought chased each other in Zach's mind. Would facing their demons together become a path to healing, or simply expose cracks too deep to mend? As the sunset cast long shadows across the studio, the golden light seeped through the dusty windows like fragile hope. Zach stood before his father, a growing anticipation swirling inside him. The moment held the potential to be everything they needed, yet an undercurrent of fear always lurked, threatening to drown their newfound courage. Jack took a deep breath, and Zach could see that his father was wading through his own turbulent thoughts. "What stories do we even have left to tell?" Jack asked, his voice almost a whisper. Zach felt a knot tighten in his stomach, knowing that the answer lay buried under years of unresolved conflicts. "Maybe we start by talking about the art," Zach suggested, sensing the thin thread of hesitation in Jack's heart that needed breaking. What did it mean to you? Who did you paint for? What were you trying to express? Jack's gaze faltered, but a hint of nostalgia flickered in his eyes. It was more than just color and form. It was clarity. It was a way to connect both with myself and with the world outside. But when she passed, the colors faded. I couldn't find a reason to pick up the brush again. Zach felt the weight of his father's unfulfilled grief, and yet, he couldn't help but feel a swell of defiance ripple through him. Art doesn't have to be perfect, Dad. It doesn't have to mean something monumental. It can be messy, just like life. What if we use this to let out all the frustration, the sadness? We can paint it all. Jack looked at Zach, the worn lines on his face seeming to soften as the crinkles around his eyes deepened. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is simple, Zach replied, leveled his voice to carry conviction. But it's not easy. You have to let yourself be vulnerable, and I know that's hard. Each word Zach uttered was a thread weaving them closer together, yet he was acutely aware of the chasm that still existed between them, one filled with grief, suppression, and fear. What they were venturing into was perplexing. He loathed the thought of emotions flooding back as they unthreaded those painful memories, yet the promise of healing on the other side felt worth the risk. In a moment of bravery, Jack moved to the blank canvas and picked up a brush, hands trembling slightly, uncertainty etched in his brows. Tell me, he requested. What should I do? Zach stepped beside him, the scent of linseed oil intoxicating him with hope and urgency. Just paint your memories of her. It doesn't matter if it looks like anything. Let it flow out. We'll do it together. They dipped their brushes into vibrant pigments, drawing strokes that mirrored their unspoken emotions. As color met canvas, a mesmerizing pattern began to emerge. With each sweep, Jack's face transformed, revealing glimpses of relief, frustration, and finally acceptance. The trepidation in his movements softened, and a smile slowly formed. Zach watched in awe, their silent camaraderie enveloping the air. One were they both transforming through art, unearthing emotions that had languished for far too long. They spoke through their strokes, capturing glimmers of their connection amid the tumultuous past. And Zach felt a surge of raw power undulating through him. But beneath it all lay uncertainty. A decision loomed, one that could threaten this burgeoning connection. He couldn't ignore the undeniable truth that Jack's fear of disappointment still overshadowed them both. Would they be brave enough to confront the shadows that they had long kept at bay? As Jack pressed on, lost in the rhythm of creative rebirth, a voice echoed in Zach's mind, unrelenting. What if revealing their shared burden didn't just embrace healing but crushed them beneath its weight? As colors combined and mingled, the crescendo of creation rose, echoing within the studio. Yet the mere act of painting could not erase the fears and doubts lurking in the corners of their minds. Would they find solace in expressing their pain, or would it unravel everything they were attempting to build anew? The tension thickened as the weight of past choices lingered palpably in the air. With Jack pulling away into the memory of his own choices and Zach teetering on this edge of discovery, the canvas before them became not just a representation of their journey, but a battleground for everything that still lay unaddressed between them. Would finishing the painting be painful or liberating? What would happen when the last stroke was made? As the strokes on the canvas heightened in intensity, Zach felt a palpable change in the atmosphere. Jack's brows knotted in concentration, focusing intently on the swirling chaos of colors that reflected an ocean of their interconnected grief. What was once a shared silence began to crack, revealing the precarious fabric of their relationship. Zach moved closer, each stroke of Jack's brush exposing more than just color. They revealed buried truths. Remember that summer we spent at the cabin? He ventured, the bitterness of memories laced with glimmers of happiness. You taught me how to fish, you caught that enormous trout. Jack paused momentarily, the brush hovering above the canvas. Your mother always loved those fishing trips. She had a way of making every moment larger than life. Zach felt the heaviness of that unacknowledged sorrow swathe around them, but he refused to allow it to close off the light they had started to uncover. What if we painted that day? The lake was a mirror, reflecting a sky full of promise. What if we captured that feeling, that connection? Jack resumed painting, the brush now moving with more conviction. You were always so enthusiastic, Zach. You dashed through the woods, claiming the world was at your feet. In the sacred dance between father and son, the blending of colors under their fingertips began to form more than just images, they were creating bridges. With brush strokes growing bolder, the past coalesced with the present, revealing a camaraderie that neither had fully acknowledged until now. But there was still an undercurrent of fear that tightened Zach's chest. Would their newfound connection be something that once again could be lost? He had the unsettling feeling that at any moment, the conversation could shift from catharsis to confrontation, where unspoken resentments emerged. Dad, he began deliberately, feeling the weight of his next words. We can't avoid our pain forever. It's time to confront it. What about the years we lost? Jack hesitated. The brush quivered in his grip, an almost imperceptible tremor reflecting a tidal wave of emotion. You don't know what it's like, Zach. I didn't want to burden you with my grief, he said, voice low but strained, revealing an unfamiliar vulnerability. You did, Dad, Zach replied firmly. We both carried it. It was unbearable, and it drove us apart. Silence ensued, and the paint on the canvas started to drip as both men absorbed the sting of truth. The realization that they had been mourning not only a loss but also a relationship began to sink in. Jack cleared his throat, eyes locked onto the field of colors they had created together, filled with both crude imperfections and raw emotion. I didn't know how to let you in, he confessed, a shudder traveling through his voice. Zach felt a crack opening wider in his heart, as well as the chasm that severed his relationship with Jack. But in acknowledging the pain, they could begin to shift toward healing. Then let us do this together. No more hiding, he asserted, determination coloring his voice. All right, Jack murmured, the acceptance still tinged with an air of caution. Zach waited, the weight of his father's past colliding with his own uncertainties, carving out a space for sincerity. As he dipped the brush again, swirling it through crimson and cobalt, he felt his own vulnerability collide with Jack's. There was something awe-inspiring about moving forward together toward this fragile catharsis, with the brushes now working in a synchronized rhythm. Doubts started to fade, but lingering questions remained like the strokes of paint, an insistent reminder of the battles still to come. Each stroke seemed to inch them closer to something powerful yet uncertain. Zach found himself contemplating how to encourage Jack to face the truths they had buried so deep. Would he muster the courage to confront the demons of the past, or would the safety of silence continue to reign? The realization crashed upon him. Returning to the past meant confronting the rawest of wounds and addressing the fears that clung tightly to their bond. As they stepped back to survey their ongoing creation, Zach felt the heartbeat of the studio shift. Would they have the strength to continue this trajectory towards confrontation, or would the wall of unspoken words simply shatter them instead of liberating them? In that charged silence, the last brushstroke hung like a sword, poised to either sever their connection or bolster it. The deliberation lay heavily in the air. Was the next step forward truly toward reconciliation, or was it the precipice of their undoing? Zach's heart raced, suspended in that moment, the weight of uncertainty pressing down like an iron anchor. The colors flowed endlessly across the canvas, intertwining with his emotional turmoil. He felt the pull of unresolved tension that threatened to undo the fragile alliance he and Jack had just begun to forge. Dad, he said, hesitating again before forcing the words out. I think we need to talk more about what happened and who we were to each other and who we are now. Each word dripped with the urgency to navigate the maze of their suppressed memories, ultimately leading them to the danger of vulnerability. I don't think we can fix everything with paint, Jack murmured, his brush pausing as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Zach swallowed, feeling the sting of disappointment cut through him. We don't need to fix everything right away. But if we don't start somewhere, with the truth, it'll eat us alive. The silence between them felt like a canyon, feeding on shared regrets. Would this plunge toward honesty leave them stripped bare or forge something entirely novel? Jack's eyes glistened as if haunted by shadows. I lost myself after your mother died, Zach, Jack finally admitted, not quite meeting his son's gaze. I thought isolating myself would protect you. I thought you'd be better off without my sadness looming over you. Do you really think that's how it works? Zach challenged, feeling the urgency of his voice grow. I felt your absence every day. I never stopped feeling the weight of your grief. We went through it alone, and that just made it worse. Jack's gaze dropped to the floor, the corners of his mouth turning downwards as if in defeat. I see that now, he whispered, shame lacing his tone. But I didn't know how to invite you back in. I didn't know if you would even want me after everything. Zach saw the flicker of doubt in his father's eyes, like a crack in the dam that held back a flood of complex emotions. It ignited something deep within him, propelling him forward. But you're here now, Dad. We can rebuild, and we're doing it through this painting. Let us infuse our struggles into the canvas, he encouraged, realizing he was extending the hand of reconciliation while feeling bewildered by his own vulnerability. Maybe that's what we've been missing all along, Jack replied, finally meeting Zach's gaze, his expression softening. To create something with all our grief, not just our joys. Emboldened, Zach seized the moment. Let us paint our past, he declared, the joy of fishing, yes, but also what we lost, what it cost us. Let us bring all of it to life. Jack nodded resolutely, a flicker of determination igniting in his eyes. They picked up their brushes together, working in sync, guided by shadow and light. Each brushstroke released fragments of memories, laughter, tears, hopes, and regrets, all dancing together in vibrant chaos, but with every shape that emerged on the canvas, Zach could feel his own doubts creeping in again. Would their artistic journey truly give birth to an understanding that could heal their bond? Or would it just as easily unveil more wounds lurking beneath the surface? As colors collided, creating storms on the canvas, a nagging sensation clutched at his mind. The deeper they ventured into these memories, the clearer it became that confronting the shadows would require fortitude far beyond the easel. The remnants of past pain were always threatening to resurface, and yet healing felt tantalizingly close. That he looked at Jack, wrestling with fears that perhaps they could intertwine, yet at any moment, risk shattering anew. The walls they had started to dismantle loomed with potential uneasiness, a latent threat of exposing their vulnerabilities too soon. With a steady hand, Zach touched the brush to the canvas yet again, uncertain yet compelled. The very thought of progress filled him with both hope and trepidation. If they could skirt around the heart of the matter, facing the truths would mean tipping their world into unspeakable territory. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the other room, jolting them from their reverie. The moment hung in the air, electric with tension. Was the interruption a mere accident, or was it a foretelling of the battles waiting at the threshold, just outside their fragile bubble of honesty? As they exchanged a look filled with sudden apprehension, Zach knew one thing: the next stroke might change everything. Zach's heart skipped a beat as he turned toward the doorway where the crash had erupted. The sound reverberated through the walls, an intrusion that threatened to manifest their unspoken fears. It's just the wind, he attempted to reassure himself, but his inner voice questioned the very foundation of that comfort. Should we check? Jack asked, his voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. The invitation to confront the unknown gathered in Zach's chest. Each step toward the threshold felt monumental, as if he was stepping off the edge into uncharted territory. With a deep breath, he nodded. We have to face whatever this is. As they moved cautiously into the adjoining room, the light filtered through the window, catching remnants of broken glass glistening like lost fragments of their shared history. A picture frame lay shattered on the floor, a photograph of a simpler time, a day spent fishing at the lake, laughter echoing around them. The irony struck Zach like a punch to the gut. Dad, it's your favorite picture, Zach murmured, the gravity of the moment settling heavily between them. Jack knelt to gather the scattered pieces, his fingers trembling as he turned the photo over, revealing a cracked smile within its confines. It was the kind of smile that brought warmth and nostalgia, yet stood as a defiant reminder of all that had since unraveled. Zach felt it, the whirlwind of emotions swirling once again, threatening to pull them into the depths. This picture, Jack began, voice thick with emotion, reminds me of all that we lost. I think I held on to this frame to pretend those moments never left. Zach observed his father meticulously piecing together the remnants of the photograph, his hands moving absently while Jack's other hand tightened on the edge of the table. Something profound stirred within Zach. This was the manifestation of Jack's grief, the fragments he didn't know how to mend. It paralleled their artistic endeavor on the canvas, yet this felt more raw, more immediate. "Dad," Zach let the words rush out, "if we want to heal, we can't just paste together broken memories. We need to face what happened, as messy as it may be." The weight of his own sentiment hung in the air like thick fog. There was no escaping their unresolved past any longer. Jack paused, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You're right, Zach. I was so afraid that by facing it, we would unravel even more." "Maybe it's not about unraveling but rather reconstructing," Zach proposed, the realization hitting him with clarity. Pushing past fear had unearthed compassion within him. This was not just a journey for reconciliation but a quest for personal growth. In a flash, Zach felt an unexpected surge of strength. It was time to challenge not only their shared past but his own patterns of self-preservation. What if we took this shattered frame to the canvas? Instead of hiding it, we turn it into our symbol of rebuilding? Jack's brows furrowed, considering. To embrace the pain as part of the art, could that truly lead to healing? Zach's heart raced with determination. Yes. It could be the pivotal moment where we stop burying the past but instead use it as a foundation, a chance to paint our way through the wreckage. As they returned to the studio, the urgency of prospected transformation filled the space. Each defiant stroke upon the canvas would now carry the essence of vulnerability, connection, and honest confrontation of their shared history. Zach felt the apprehension retreating, replaced with an exhilarating sense of purpose. He was ready, both for this moment and for the deep journey ahead. Just as he dipped his brush into the vibrant hue, a chilling realization struck him. What if using their pain to fuel the healing unleashed truths neither of them were prepared to confront? The notion lingered, an uninvited guest beckoning reflections of deeper fears. "Maybe we're stepping into a truth we aren't ready for," Zach muttered quietly, and Jack turned, the shadows of doubt clouding his expression once more. As brushes hovered over the canvas, Zach couldn't shake the idea that they were indeed on the brink of an inevitable confrontation. The moment of truth was inches away, and Zach understood. The journey toward healing could just as easily reveal dark facets of their bond, ones they might wish had remained hidden. Would they endure what lay ahead, or would they falter at the edge of the brush, paralyzed in fear of what they might discover together? Zach took a deep breath, feeling the bristles of the brush scrape against the canvas with a fierce tenacity that mirrored his internal struggle. Each stroke felt loaded, the paint blending thoughts of hope and dread. He glanced at Jack, who stood opposite him, wavering between determination and trepidation, much like the paint he was about to choose. "What if it's not just us facing our past?" Zach whispered, trying to articulate his unease. "What if uncovering these truths risks exposing wounds that we've both buried deep?" Jack's expression hardened slightly, reflective yet uncertain. "Zach, we've come this far. We have to trust our process. It's a leap of faith we have to take." As they took their places at the easel, Zach's mind danced with recollections of their truest selves encapsulated within the simplicity of past moments unfolding over splashes of rich colors. Yet, alongside those reminiscences lurked shadows of memories obscured by silence and sorrow, both of them conditioned to skirt around deeper conversations. He dipped his brush into a deep crimson hue, symbolic and bold. "This color represents the anger and the hurt, Dad. If we're truly going to reconstruct, it needs to be here. It shouldn't be hidden or diluted. We must acknowledge it head-on." Jack raised an eyebrow, hesitating for a moment before nodding, shifting to grab his own brush with cautious resolve. "Okay, let us do it together." As they moved in unison, the canvas slowly transformed into a representation of their inner turmoil, a chaotic assembly of color and form. The act of painting felt like unleashing a flood of emotions neither of them had been willing to confront. With every overlapping stroke, Zach sensed a vulnerability unfolding between them, a rawness that felt both terrifying and liberating. "Zach," Jack said suddenly, breaking the focused silence, "do you remember the day we brought in the big mural for the school? I thought we could fix everything with that one stroke, you know?" A flood of nostalgia washed over Zach. "And then it rained? All that work washed away." It felt like a metaphor in the making. Exactly. We poured ourselves into it, time, effort, hopes. But nature had other plans. Understanding the impermanence helped me see that sometimes what feels like a failure is simply a chance to reevaluate, to start fresh. Zach glanced at Jack, searching for insight in his eyes. What if that's what this canvas is? Jack drew his hand back, pondering. Are you suggesting we strip it down completely, to embrace its raw state? Show people not just what we've created, but the process of creation itself? Zach's heart raced. Yes. We're not just painting a pretty picture. We're announcing we've lived through pain, and we're wrestling with it right now. A flicker of something resembling pride gleamed in Jack's weary eyes. This may be our most significant work yet, a testament to what's possible. But what if we uncover more than just memories? The solemnity of Jack's inquiry hung in the air, sending a shiver down Zach's spine. Each question that arose felt heavier than the last. They were fracturing the silence that long kept them apart. Would this revelation ultimately bridge the gap or deepen it? As they continued to paint, Zach couldn't shake the feeling that the true challenge lay just beneath the surface. The painting had become more than an effort of expression. It was a battleground for confronting their fears and unearthing truths long neglected. Suddenly, a loud ringing shattered their burgeoning focus. Jack glanced toward his phone resting on the table. An incoming call. The shift in atmosphere was palpable as they froze, paintbrushes halted mid-stroke. A soft dread settled in Zach's stomach. He recognized the number. Dad, it's your old colleague, he said slowly, unsure of what tension this interruption could bring. Jack's face paled, his entire demeanor shifting as he stood still, caught between the present moment and a past he had struggled to leave behind. What if this changes everything again? Zach thought, gripping his brush tighter, the weight of uncertainty lurking just beyond reach. Would this phone call herald more unfolding truths, or lead them down yet another path of heartache? They were teetering on the edge of revelation, and for Zach, that edge began to feel exhilaratingly precarious. Zach stood before the canvas, breathless as the last remnants of the past intertwined with the colorful strokes they brought to life. The studio's energy crackled, the air was thick with anticipation. Every brushstroke was an act of defiance, not just against the ghosts of yesterday, but against the fear of loss that had lingered heavily between father and son. This confrontation, this embrace of vulnerability, was no longer solely about reclaiming Lily's legacy. It was about redefining their relationship, one stroke at a time. Jack's phone lay silent on the table, momentarily forgotten. In this newfound space of creation, Zach felt a sense of emancipation unfold. Together, they were letting go of pain, weaving it into the very fabric of their artistry. Each errant splatter, each deliberate stroke became the embodiment of both grief and healing. Let us talk about this mural, Zach suggested suddenly, recalling the shared laughter and tears, the dream that had once united them in camaraderie. Do you think that experience taught us something about loss in art? That even when things wash away, it doesn't render our efforts meaningless? At that moment, Jack turned, looking deeply into his son's eyes, recognizing the truth encapsulated in his words. Yes, he conceded, a tremor in his voice. I thought of that mural as a failure, but it was simply part of the journey. It had value, if only in the experience. And this canvas holds weight, too, Zach affirmed, gesturing to the unbridled chaos of color they had already conjured. Heck, we're not perfect artists, we're human. Our stories are all unrefined, just like this space. Through art, we can acknowledge our messiness. With kindling determination in his heart, Zach dipped his brush into a deep blue hue, the color symbolic of sorrow, hope, and the vastness of possibilities. Together, they painted the lake they once cherished, capturing not just the memories but the complexity of emotion woven into those summer days. Soon their brushstrokes danced freely, reflections of both light and shadow merging into something uniquely transformative. As the canvas began to come alive with meaning, he saw Jack smile, a genuine release of pressure exchanged for understanding. This process helps me remember to embrace both the joy and the sorrow, Jack said, his emotions raw and unpolished. In neglecting to honor both, I feel like I lost a part of myself, too. We can't rebuild what we're unwilling to explore. Zach nodded, feeling a swell of pride in his father's readiness to confront his own burdens. Their individual growth, illuminated through creative expression, was manifesting before their eyes. "What if we invite others to see this?" Zach proposed. "Not just as a finished piece, but as part of a reclamation, a celebration of who we are. I want to create a space, a community, artistically breathing life back into Lily's legacy and our lives." At that moment, Jack looked up from the canvas, realization dawning on him like the first rays of morning sun. "You mean to extend this exploration beyond just us?" The possibility electrified the atmosphere. They could open a sanctuary for healing and creation, one rooted in honesty and collaboration. "Absolutely. We can do workshops, create art with kids, show them that pain and beauty coexist. Just like the strokes on this canvas, they can take their chaos and craft it into something valuable." With newfound resolve, they stepped back to view their work, a painting imbued with stories, regrets, resilience, and rebirth. They had forged a path toward healing not just for themselves, but rippling outward into their community. Acceptance dawned as a wave of recognition washed over Zach. He had transformed not only in how he viewed his relationship with Jack, but in his role as a mentor. The sun set outside the dilapidated studio, casting a warm glow through the dusty windows. As shadows flickered and danced, Zach felt a deep sense of accomplishment cloak him. The unsaid fears were no longer untouchable. He had processed loss, but most crucially, he had redefined what it meant to move forward. He now understood the power of vulnerability. It birthed courage both in himself and in Jack. Their connection fortified, they were prepared to confront life authentically and openly. This artistic rebirth had yielded immeasurable reward. The studio would thrive once more, and along with it, an opportunity to share Lily's legacy and to heal their fractured past. "Together, we'll create something extraordinary," Jack said, his voice steady with newfound conviction. "Yes, together," Zach echoed, a genuine smile lighting up his face, a smile that reflected hope and unwavering confidence. Joy surged as they embraced one another, fortified by acknowledgement and the promise of renewal. Zach knew they were not just reframing a physical space, they were taking ownership of their narrative, standing united against the past. You need to subscribe now to witness more transformative tales and dive deep into the human experience. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like and feeding the algorithm, igniting the spark for stories yet to come. Comment on your reactions and theories about this journey, and don't forget to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is your chance to honor transformation. Don't wait even one more second.